Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob Ent podcast, the best sports podcast in New Jersey. We got a special one for y'all tonight. All of week one NFL picks. We will give our picks. We're going to talk about the odds, money line, all that good stuff because we know y'all like to gamble. Fantasy. We're going to talk about college football. As you can see, it's only two right now. We are only going to do a two-man episode. Nash, Stoudemire, Starks, Ewan, whichever duo you want to think about. Chris Paul and anybody in the league because he played with dang near everybody. Miles, smooth operator Davenport, how you doing?
Doing good, brother. I'm ready for
it. All right, we're going to get off with the college football. So week 2, we back at it. Number 3, Texas at Michigan. What's your pick and any storylines that you are watching for in this game?
Well, I think in this game, you're trying to really see if Michigan's going to be for real. Usually week 1 is like a cakewalk. Like it's a warm-up. It's basically like preseason if college football even had it. But they get a real test. I mean, now with this expanded playoff, a lot more teams can get in the playoff at the end. And right now they're 10th. A top 5 win early in the season would go a long way. But on the other side of the spectrum, Texas at number 3, this is their first year in the SEC. They're trying to show teams in the country that they're legit. That maybe that they can recapture some of that magic of the Vince Young days and Colt McCoy and all that stuff. But they got to go through the national champions. Even though they've lost a good amount of guys, they're still the reigning national champions. And this would be a good win for Texas, too, because in the SEC, they got the two sides of the conference. At some point, they're going to play teams that are a lot better than Michigan. So this is another warm-up game for them, too. But it'll both look good for the committee, either side.
Yeah, I think Texas is going to end up winning this game. I like what I saw from Quinn Ewers, even a little bit from Arch Manning that we was able to see last week. So that was, like you said, though, it's the first week. It's basically preseason. You're supposed to – that's the cakewalk. That's the little warm-up game. You're supposed to see the crazy stats, 52-4, 50 points on the board, 6 touchdowns. You're supposed to see stuff like that, which makes me think about Colorado. They didn't have a cakewalk the first week. We talked about it in our chat. I don't know how good Colorado is actually going to be this year, especially starting off that way. They have Nebraska. They beat them last year. It was a little bit of, of course, the extracurriculars with Matt Rule and that whole situation. Prime is saying this year, I love Matt Rule. He's a part of the coaches and completely different approach. How do you see this game going? Any storylines from this one?
Definitely. The defense is going to have to be a little better than they were week 1. I mean, that's North Dakota State. That's not like a Power 5 team. This is not somebody that is going to make the playoff at the end of the year. I mean, Colorado, they're not even in the discussion for that. But for this game, that kid, the freshman from Nebraska, he looked good. He has the Mahomes mannerisms down packed. I know he might try to duck them, but he definitely been practicing the little walk and the sidearm throws in the backyard before we got to Nebraska. So he looked good week 1. He's a freshman, so depending on the defense, it could go many different ways. But I might lean towards trusting Shador, the more seasoned quarterback, the guy who he's led some good wins. He almost beat USC last year with Caleb Williams. So I kind of trust Colorado in this game over a young Nebraska team. I mean, Dylan, he's going to be up here for a couple more years, maybe even 4 years. That's the thing. Nebraska hasn't had a good quarterback in my memory. So enjoy this kid while he lasts. Hopefully, he brings more prosperity to that side of the country because, I mean, there's not much going on in Nebraska. So
I got Colorado winning this one too, but he could try to dodge it all he wants. Pat Mahomes is embracing it because he tweeted it last week. He was like, "Good pass, Cuzzo, good pass." So Mahomes is embracing it. He might as well embrace it. Hopefully, maybe he able to link up with him, get a workout with him next summer, and really actually improve his game. Next game, Tennessee 14 against North Carolina State. How do you see this one going?
I'm gonna have to lean towards the SEC team. Like I'm not too familiar with Tennessee, but I know that they've got a who's it, Nico. He's a really
Yeah.
good quarterback. Um, NC State. I mean, I'm not really trusting any of these ACC teams. Like that conference is a little weak. Let's be frank. I mean, the cream of the crop is the SEC. So all these teams are more battle tested than what you're going to get out of the ACC. So I got to rock with Tennessee on this one.
For you mentioned the ACC, right? So do you think because it's weak, because we've seen that already discussed it after week one, especially seeing Florida State, how they play, especially seeing how Miami just they handled Florida handedly. Um, who do you see actually if whoever wins the ACC, will that be one of the 10 playoff teams that make it in?
I think so. I think of all the teams that I've seen so far, I think it's Miami that is probably at the top of that list, um, especially with Cam Ward playing the way he did. I mean, Florida is not as good as they used to be, but that's still an SEC team. You went into the swamp and destroyed them. So shout out to you for that. But um, yeah, they should. I don't want to say walk through because anything can happen in college football. We've seen crazier games, crazier losses. So um, they just got to take it week by week. But Miami, I mean, the U. I don't want to say the U is back because then that I might jinx them. But as long as Cam Ward is playing like he did last week, where he's throwing off-platform throws and scrambling a little bit, they got something this year.
Any of these games this week, do you see possible upset alert for any of these teams? Any games you like, that might be a good one where it might be an upset.
I was like trying to look through and see any of these games. Not really. Um, it's one of those weeks where it's still like the first couple weeks. College football is you're gonna have these one or two ranked games that you get to add a little spice, so you're not bored with the 50 games that they play on Saturday. And um, maybe Iowa State, Iowa. I know the rivalry games, the in-state rivalries usually get a little dicey, and I know um, Iowa is not known for their offense. So if Iowa State can jump on them early, I mean, let's see. But that's a home game for Iowa. It still might be tough, but um, I do know Iowa State. Their coach. I like their coach. I like their coach.
Yeah, I was looking at the schedule. I'm looking like we got some upsets last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like you said, a couple of games where you see the first week, typically a couple of ranked teams against ranked teams, but like Florida State, for example, people were talking about it as a possible upset. Nobody really probably saw that coming. I don't see any games like that this week. Like it's kind of a blah type of week of games for this week two. It'll eventually ramp up, like you said, but had to throw that out there for all of those college football heads. We know that y'all be watching the show, so we got shot some of y'all picks for that. Week one, the NFL is back. It feels like Christmas. I was telling my wife we got NFL games, WNBA playoffs next month, MLB playoffs, NBA regular season. It's the best time of the year. Super busy. We're going to have content every single episode, touching on everything. And shout out to y'all if you're watching this. Hit that subscribe button. Y'all went crazy on the Shohei Aaron Judge video. Appreciate y'all. Keep subscribing, keep sharing, keep commenting. First game we got on Thursday. Tomorrow, Ravens Chiefs. Now, Derrick Henry, throw a little stat out there for some of these games. They got some interesting facts, so I'm gonna throw them out there for our listeners and our viewers. Derrick Henry, for his career, has averaged 112 yards per game against the Chiefs. That's the most he's averaged against any team in his career. I'm picking the Ravens to win. I think they're going to literally, to that point, Derrick Henry, they're going to run the ball and play action off of that. Chiefs normally they start off a little slow anyway, and I don't know about that defense. I think Pat Mahomes will have a good game, but I think the Ravens their rush attack. You know, they led the league last year in rushing. I think it's going to be heavy run options, and Lamar will have a little success off of that. I don't see Lamar having a crazy game. I think it's just going to be they're going to run it down their throats, pause, no diddy.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ravens definitely they have the edge right now. They brought in Derrick Henry, who I mean he's been the cream of the crop of the running backs, like the model of consistency. You give him 300 carries, he's going to give you at least 13, 1400 yards. So, um, and this is he's in the perfect spot. I mean, Tennessee it kind of dwindled at the end. It was time for a change, and I feel like he might be rejuvenated over here in Baltimore, just because you do have that Lamar Jackson factor. Like that's always going to be a factor every time they snap the ball. Is he could tuck it and go 60, 70 yards down the field. But now Derrick Henry, he's going to help them be able to kind of slow down this fast-paced Kansas City offense. Like Andy Reid, he's going to do quick plays. He's going to want to get out of there early. I mean, they do have Pacheco, and he's a great weapon that they've got now. Um, but I think if the Chiefs can start quick, if they get the ball, I mean, if they win the coin toss, I would take it. I mean, like you said, this defense, they lost L'Jarius Sneed, so um, that back end isn't as strong as it was last year. They lost a couple linebackers too, so this defense that kind of carried them a little bit last year is a little broken. So I'm looking for Pat Mahomes to kind of take off. I mean, he's got Rashi Rice, Travis Kelsey's back. You know, what? I'm going with the Chiefs. I'm going with the Chiefs. I'm rocking with the Chiefs. Um, I usually just don't bet against Mahomes when it comes down to this, and he's kind of got Lamar's number when we look at the head to head. So yeah, I'm rocking with them.
Yeah, head to head, I think is in the six meetings. Mahomes is like 4-1. I'm banking on Derrick Henry in the Russian attack, and I could say I think the Ravens defense is a little bit better than the Chiefs if I give the defensive edge too. So that's how I go with that one. Packers Eagles in Brazil. Some players already have mentioned that they didn't want to go to Brazil to have this game. And I forgot who it was. It was a podcast with former NFL players. They was like, NFL, you thought this was smart to take millionaires to Brazil with everything that's going on in Brazil? Hopefully everybody comes back safely because I get what he was saying. I don't know, but the NFL is all about money anyway, so we know how that was gonna go. Packers Eagles. I'll let you start on this one. Who you got winning this game? X factors. This game for those that are tuning in, it is solely on Peacock for this game. If you do not have Peacock, you will not be able to watch it. And I know some say you could follow it on Twitter. Well, guess what? Twitter is banned in Brazil. So you're not gonna be able to follow it on Twitter either. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I got a couple sites, but I'm not gonna snitch on those sites because I need them this year. I'm not getting that league. I'm not getting that NFL red zone and all that stuff. So we we good. But for this one, I expect sparks. I expect high scoring. Like we got two really good quarterbacks. Jordan Love's the hot new name because down the stretch he was one of the best, if not the best quarterback coming down the stretch. And they add Josh Jacobs to this offense, which I think he's a step up from Aaron Jones. Even though Aaron Jones is really good, but Josh Jacobs, I mean, we're not even like 2 years removed from him leading the league in rushing and being the best running back in football. So you add that to Jordan Love, and these young receivers get another year of experience with Jordan Love. So, I mean, that Eagles defense, I hope they fix their, secondary deficiencies because last year it wasn't looking too good. But Bradbury's not playing, so it's it's tough because it's an injury, but then it might help them. It might help them get a win here in Brazil. So um, I'm looking for the 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 matchup of quarterbacks and the running backs. So Saquon, I think they brought him in because he is top five running back. He's one of the best running backs in the league. Hopefully, him playing behind a good offensive line, other weapons will keep him fresh, rejuvenated. He can get that young Saquon spark back. I mean, he's back in PA, so maybe this is what he needed. Maybe he needed to get out of the city and come back to the fields a little bit. So um, I'm picking the Eagles. I think I was listening to Jalen Hurts talk the other day and just how last year there were too many factors going on. Like he didn't feel like he had control of the offense as much as he wanted, and this year it's his offense. So with Kellen Moore coming in there, and now you got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I saw they're going to use Jahan Dotson too, and I think he's going to come into play pretty early in this season. Um, that that gives them an advantage already. So I'm taking them. Everybody's high on the Packers because Jordan Love, he's the next great Packers quarterback. Maybe 15 years from now, he could come kick it in New York with us. But um, I'm rocking with the Eagles for this one.
I'm gonna rock with the Eagles on this one too. Like you said, it should be high scoring. I am very intrigued. The thing I'm going to be watching the most, more than likely for me, is to see how improved this secondary is with Jordan Love at quarterback going against them. Let's see how improved the Eagles secondary is with Quinyon Mitchell. You got Cooper DeJean. You got those draft picks right there. Let's see how improved they are. Because Jordan Love is definitely in that conversation of the echelon of top 10, top 15 quarterbacks, however you want to view it, however you rank them. I don't think the weapons are as good as the Eagles. Like he did good last year. Jordan Love did his thing. But I don't think any NFL teams are game planning for these wide receivers scared of what any of their wide receivers are going to do. Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, none of them put fear in the hearts of any defensive coordinators. They sleep good the night before. Like, all right, we got to worry about Jordan Love. But the wide receivers, the DBs go out, they party, all that the night before because they good. We know these wide receivers ain't going to really get like that. It's really Love. That's the offense. And I agree. Josh Jacobs, yeah. I think that was a huge pickup for him, upgrade over Aaron Jones. Those are the two main matchups. Love, Hurts, Saquon, Josh Jacobs. I got the Eagles winning. Next one, I guess you could say it's a quarterback conversation too. Steelers at Falcons. Russ has been named the starter. Kirk Cousins coming off of the Achilles. He's a starter also. I'm going with the Steelers to win because of the defense. And I feel bad for Kirk Cousins. Your first game back, coming off of Achilles, you got to see TJ Watt. Oh, we're going to test that Achilles out, my boy. We going to test it out. I can see TJ Watt having a 2-sack, 3-sack game or getting in there, having a bunch of pressures, rushing Kirk Cousins. I am intrigued to see on the Falcon side, though, if we can finally see these weapons fully utilized. The Kyle Pitts, the Drake Londons. I would love it for them to have an actual competent quarterback now. I don't know if they get busy this game, but I do love that they have an upgrade at quarterback because I think Kyle Pitts has all the skill set to be a top 5, top 3 tight end in NFL. But he was in Arthur Smith's rush 45 times offense.
Right, and that's why I'm leaning towards the Falcons in this because it's almost like they're looking at their old selves in the Steelers because now the Steelers got Arthur Smith as their OC, and they already know kind of his game plan is to run it. Well, run it with the wrong guys because he didn't use Bijan for diddly. You taking a running back that high, you got to use him. So I think this is a game, like you said, Kirk Cousins. He's coming off that Achilles. There's a couple guys coming off Achilles this year, but he's I think he's gonna have to work that quick play and trust those big guys for those jump balls. Like Drake London, that was his thing. He's a former basketball player at USC. Like throw it up there, he's probably gonna get it. Kyle Pitts, another one that can get the jump ball. Like you got two freaks out there, and then not to even mention your like top five running back that you just took last year, who, um, like Greg says, you don't pay running backs when you can draft them like this. And Bijan's still on his rookie deal. Give him touches. He needs to touch it at least 20, 25 times a game because that guy, when he's got the juice, and they need to let him loose this year. So, and Russ, I just don't trust it. I think his issue lately has been he holds on to it too long, and I don't think that's going to change with the Steelers just because like they have who is it? Uh, Pat Freiermuth and Pickens, but besides that, I mean Roman Wilson, the rookie, but I don't really see too many weapons. Like he's gonna need guys to get open. He doesn't have like Doug Baldwin's on his team or Tyler Lockett's. Like he's got um, guys that you bomb it to, and I mean, the Falcons got a couple guys on the back end with Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons that they signed too. So I'm gonna have to lean Falcons way.
I think the Steelers win it because of that rush game. It's going to be poetic that they got rid of Arthur Smith, and then the Falcons lose to the Steelers, Arthur Smith's offense, and it's going to be because they ran it 46 times between Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, which I think we've already talked about this before. I think Jalen Warren is the better running back in regards of getting yardage. Najee Harris in between the tackles, and maybe it's different with Arthur Smith's offense because when he came into the league, he actually was getting 4 or 5 yards a carry. Now I don't know what happened. Obviously, Matt Canada, everybody throws it on him, but that was he didn't. He looked like one of those old school '90 just heavy set Ron Dane type of running backs that just gets you 2 3 yards. Like it was disgusting to watch. So we'll see how that goes. I'm intrigued with Arthur Smith being there. Next game, you got the Titans, Mr. Mayo and his coffee going against Caleb Williams in his debut. Throw a stat out there. Since 2003, the 15 quarterbacks that have gone number one overall, their debut, they're 0-14-1. Caleb Williams, though, is the first quarterback ever drafted in the top five to inherit two wide receivers coming off of a 1,200-yard receiving season. Keenan Allen and DJ Moore both did that last season. I think we're gonna hear all of it. We're gonna hear all. This is gonna be a game. I see the Bears winning, and we're gonna hear all of the overreactions. Oh my gosh, Caleb Williams is everything that they talked about, everything we dreamed of. The Bears are gonna Chicago's gonna throw a little parade. This is the best QB we've ever had. I think Caleb Williams gets busy. They just have too many weapons, bro. They could really be one of the top five offenses this year. If Caleb Williams is even half of what we think he's going to be, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Roman Dunze, DeAndre Swift, I think they get busy this game. And I don't see the Titans having a lockdown defense that's going to suddenly stop 5, 6 weapons. Yeah, I don't see it.
It's definitely going to be interesting because that stat, I mean, with context, now that you're looking at Caleb, that shouldn't be his defining stat there because none of those other teams, like you said, inherited two receivers that are studs like this, like two Pro Bowl receivers. You drafted another guy who is a top five rookie receiver in the class and
Future Pro Bowler.
future Pro Bowler. So he's got the weapons. This is what Justin Fields. I bet he wishes he could swap uh, years that he came out because he's like, where was all this when I was coming up? You had me throwing to Darnell Mooney and a couple of these other no name guys. So um, I think it's gonna be the Bears. I mean, they're gonna have a good team. They've got weapons on defense too. You know, Jalen Johnson. They had traded for Montez Sweat. They've got linebackers too. So um, the pieces are there for Caleb to do something. I mean, it, I don't know if they win the division. Maybe they get a wild card or something. But like this team is built to win right away. Not a Super Bowl, but it takes time for that. Nobody ever wins a Super Bowl their rookie year unless it's Madden, and this is real life. So, um, but on the other end of it, Will Levis, I'm looking forward to seeing him because I think that kid is talented. We saw it. He has a connection with D Hop. You bring in Calvin Ridley. Um, you also bring in Tony Pollard. You've got different weapons on that side of the ball. Um, and who knows? I mean, he was regarded as like a top 20 pick before he fell out of the first round. Maybe it was the Mayo stuff. Um, Most likely there was some deficiency in his game, but all things out of training camp I've heard have been good. So I'm thinking this could be a close game. Like the Titans could honestly sneak out of here with a win, just because yeah, what we saw from Caleb um, was nice. We saw some throws in preseason. Granted, some of that stuff was against like second and third string guys for like the Bills, where we're seeing the off platform throws and him making plays against the DN. Like that's not the first string. So I know he's going to end up having to pass it a little bit, and let's see, because it's not like people or rookies just walk out there and they're just all pro level players like that. Like quarterbacks, that doesn't happen. So um, hopefully they bring him along slowly and um, call some quick, easy plays for him to hit the tight end or some crossing routes for some of these guys to get the ball to your weapons and let them make plays.
That's what I think is gonna happen. You got these type of weapons. He ain't gotta do much as of yet. You can get it to DJ Moore on a slant, and he take it 40 yards. You got DeAndre Swift, who's a threat out of the backfield to the catch and running. Like he got it easy. Like you said, Justin Fields. Not saying he got it easy, but it's a lot of quarterbacks that's been taken over the years that would have loved to get these weapons from day one. It's obviously the Bears believe he is who he says he is with the arrogance and the bravado. And we saw on Hard Knocks. No, I don't get nervous. I don't get nervous at all.
We're gonna see. I mean,
We we gonna
we
see.
saw it last year when he jumped in the crowd and covered his face. I mean, you might not get nervous, but you can get rattled. So
Yeah, I'm going with the Bears. Jaguars at Dolphins. Since Mike McDaniel took over in 2022, they are 6-0 during the first 3 weeks of the season. The Dolphins typically get off on a hot start. I'm going with the Dolphins in this game. I think this is the start of the Tyreek to 2K again. This is a big game. Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, the defense. I see Chop Robinson having an impact this game. Like I think this is going to be a good win for the Dolphins. I don't believe in the Jags. I know some teams, some people are like the Jags going to bounce back. I still got question marks about Trevor Lawrence. Me personally, I want to see. All right, your coaches pretty much messed you up the first couple years, but let's see. This year is no more excuses. It's no more excuses. I don't want, oh, the coach. Oh, I didn't get a haircut the right way. They call me sunshine and it wasn't shining. Like, I don't want to hear nothing else. Trevor Lawrence has to actually perform this season, get this team into the playoffs, win a playoff game. I want to see it. Correct. Make me be a believer. Please, Trevor.
I think for him, last year was a little tough because he hurt his knee, sprained his MCL, and the instability in his knee probably led to some of that bad play that we saw down the stretch, which led to them missing the playoffs. because before I was looking at stats online earlier, and before he got hurt, like his numbers were pretty good. Like he was playing well. He was running the ball effectively, hitting Ridley, hitting all these guys that were brought in to help him. And some of those guys are gone now, but I think the Jags honestly got a chance in this one. Like you've got Travis Etienne, you can ride the hot hand with that. You've got Evan Ingram, who's a red zone threat. Now you've got a rookie in Brian Thomas Jr., who um, that's the thing. You don't sleep on these LSU receivers. I think he can get going as early as this Sunday and show that he's just as special as like the neighbors and the Odunzes out there. So um, I'm gonna take the Jags in this one because I don't know. I got to back up my Dolphins not making the playoffs pick. So they're gonna have to lose some of these games early for me to be right on that. And I think Trevor Lawrence can get it done. I trust you, Trevor.
Hey, you got to be consistent because they was definitely on your head top about that one on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So shout out to you being consistent. Patriots, Bengals. I don't think it's much on this one. I got the Bengals. I don't think it's much on this one. I got the Bengals.
I was gonna say, I mean, if you're picking the Patriots, then you you must be doing whatever the Porters do over there in Denver and Toronto and all that stuff. They gamble heavy. So, but they don't even need Jamar for this game. They could even just tell him like, all right, you practicing today. I mean, that was news to Chris's ears, but um, let's see if he's actually going to play. Um, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, don't they play the Chiefs the week 2?
Yeah, they play
That's
the
what we
Chiefs.
want. That's when we want Jamar. Let everybody else get busy because once Jamar come back, all y'all targets is going down. So don't even let everybody have a little fun for 1 week. Let T. Higgins be a number one, get 12, 14 targets. And then once Jamar come back, everybody get their little 5 to 6 targets. Y'all better make the most out of it. I think that's how it goes. Like you said, they don't need. And Joe Burrow is that great of a quarterback where he's going to be effective, get other people to rock. I don't see any issue. They shouldn't have any issue with them. I don't see any positives that could come out of this game for the Patriots. Maybe Ramondre Stevenson has 100 yards rushing. Jacoby Brissett. I mean, I don't see much for the Patriots. Vikings at Giants. That's another game where you might want to take your nap during the Sunday slate of games. You might want to, if you got the NFL with the red zone. This is probably not a game that you're not gonna have it on the 4 split screen. You're not gonna have the Vikings Giants game on. Our Giants aficionado is under the weather, which could be,
It's
you
convenient.
know, saying something about how Sunday's gonna go if he's already under the weather. I think this game, I don't even really care, honestly. I think
It's a,
the
I
Vikings
think,
should win. The
yeah,
Vikings
I was gonna
should
say
win.
they should win. But who knows? Daniel Jones, he has these magical games where out of nowhere he could have like 2 or 3 touchdowns, one rushing. So it could be one of those games. I mean, you brought in a stud in Malik Neighbors. Maybe he gets off early. But I'm leaning towards the Vikings because I don't know. I think Sam, even though it was limited, you know, time last year, he did play some good football with the 49ers. And usually, if you have a broken career at some point, you're going to make it through San Fran and they can fix it. Like Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. Sam, it's never been about like his skill level or talent. Like it's always been kind of between the ears. Like some of his throws, he tries to do too much. But on this team, you got Justin Jefferson, you got Jordan Addison, and you got Aaron Jones now. So feed Aaron Jones. You can dump it off to him. You got Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league right now. Those are things that the Giants just can't really match up with. Like, sure, they improved the line. That's cool. Um, Defensively, it's a leaky secondary. Like Deontay Banks, he's cool. I don't know if he's a number one though. So it could be a long day for him against Justin Jefferson on Sunday. Uh,
Yeah,
if that's the case, then I mean the Vikings they might be, you know, Greg might be turning his TV off early. Uh,
I don't even think Greg gonna turn this one on.
man,
They
you
don't
know
like
he
you said.
oh,
Sam has Addison and Justin Jefferson. This is another dream situation for a quarterback that's borderline a journeyman, struggled in his career, and you get to have the best wide receiver, which we've seen when Kirk went down last year. Justin Jefferson still was getting those stats. Still, so he's one of the few wide receivers. It don't matter who his quarterback is. It
yeah,
really
that's
doesn't matter.
because who is it? Kevin O'Connell, the head coach. He's another guy who's a good developer of quarterbacks, coming over from that McVay tree. Um, and we saw it a couple years ago when they won the division. They're like number two seed in the NFC. Like they were really good. But of course, you know, playoffs, Kirk Cousins, they don't go together. It's like it's a bad marriage. So they had to get rid of him. This year is basically free game. They get to develop some talent, see what they got. Sam's a one and done. He's This is a chance to save his career. Maybe he'll um, have an upswing like Baker at some point, where you do land in a place that um, you can call home for a few years. Like Baker, he was on his way out, and by the grace of God, like Tampa Bay came calling, and all of a sudden now he's $100 million richer. So Sam's not going to get that here, but if he plays well this year, maybe somebody's willing to give him another chance because he's only 26, 27. Like that's the thing. The revolving door of quarterbacks, young quarterbacks in the league is crazy. They treat some of these young quarterbacks like the WNBA treats rookies. So
Yeah, like you said, Kirk Cousins and playoffs is it's a bad marriage. Is the equivalent of anybody that marries J Lo. It typically doesn't work out. That's the equivalent right there. And to your point, I mean, Sam could have a home in Dallas since Dak probably leaving. Sam, Sam could have a home over there because I don't think Trey Lance is going to be the answer. And from past history, Jerry does love him a good old white quarterback. So Sam might have a home over there. We got Panthers at Saints. Your coach of the year candidate, Matt Canales. Is this the game where we see Bryce Young show flashes, at least, of, hey, I'm a number one overall pick for a reason?
it's possible because I know they're getting some pieces back. Like J.C. Horn's coming back; he's a stud out there, and Olave could be in for an interesting Sunday. But hopefully, Bryce Young comes out. They spread the ball out. They brought in Deontay Johnson. They still got Thielen. They brought in weapons. They built up the line. So um, this is where expectations. You're the number one pick. These are the games you got to win against your in division rivals in a way. I mean, you got Derek Carr who's got one leg out the door. Like they already got Rattler warming up in the bullpen. So it's one of those things where Bryce Young, I believe in you. I think that you can be a solid quarterback in the NFL. You could even follow the same model as a former Saints quarterback in like Drew Brees, where you don't need to have the strongest arm. You can uh, play off of accuracy, and I think, I mean, he fixed Baker last year, the coach for the Panthers. If he was able to do that, I mean, Baker, he looked broken. He was getting benched for Sam in Carolina when they were there. So if he can do that for Bryce Young, I mean, he won a Heisman Trophy. It's not like the talent's not there. Um, but on Sunday, I know he's long-winded, but on Sunday, I think the Panthers should be able to win with some of the pieces they brought in um, and some of the pieces that have gone out for the Saints. I mean, I don't know if they should even be thinking about winning this year. They should honestly. start Rattler sooner than later because Derek Carr's not it. You saw it last year. You paid him all that money, and what'd you get? You got the same record that you could have gotten from Taysom Hill. So
They brought Derek Carr in to be to save money in regards of chaplain because he prays, so they didn't have to pay for a chaplain last season. Because outside of that, even seeing it in the preseason, like you said, they got Rattler waiting. I could already see if he struggles at any point in this game, you want to hear the chance. They're gonna want Rattler. If it's not this game, it'll be the next game. They'll be asking the questions in the press conferences. Will we possibly see Rattler next week? So, like you said, I don't know. Derek Carr, he had Devontae Adams and couldn't figure everything out. So, shout out to you, you got your money, but yeah, they definitely need a different answer at QB. Raiders at Chargers. Antonio Pierce, full-time head coach now, going against new coach Harbaugh. It's Jim, right? It's Jim over in
yeah,
Jim Harbaugh. Back in the NFL. How you see this first game going for him?
I mean, I think they got it locked up if he brings over his sign stealer from Michigan. They could definitely pull this one out if he's deciphering what they're doing on the other side. But all jokes aside, like Justin Herbert, I think he's going to have a good game and good season. Like people kind of have been sleeping on him just because he lost Keenan Allen, he's lost a couple weapons, Mike Williams to the Jets, but you're bringing in Lad McConkey. You still got Josh Palmer, who um, cosplayed as a number one receiver last year. So I mean, he's done it before. Why not do it again? So, um, but Justin Herbert is like one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, people are just waiting for him to just light it up to crown him a top five quarterback. Oh yeah, he just has to throw like 4 touchdowns in a game, and they're already crowning him that. And on the Raiders side, I mean Minshew, I don't know if he's the answer, and I don't think Devontae believes he's the answer. I'm sure deep down he's he's got those tweets ready to send, so that trade request comes through a little easier around October. So, um, but they're going to run the ball a lot. And Zamir White, he's a guy. I mean, if you play fantasy, that's definitely a guy you should look into. But I just don't know how good this offense is going to be. Like, sure, they got Devontae Adams, but I mean, he can't throw it to himself. Like Minshew is what he is. He's a bridge quarterback, and they didn't draft a quarterback this year. But if they're bad enough, they'll be back up here again next year, and there's a good batch of quarterbacks coming out next year. But Devontae, he won't be here for that. So
Chargers winning Gardner Minshew. That's all I gotta say. I don't know how it's gonna go. I feel bad for Antonio Pierce. That's how you start off your head coaching career, full time, not interim. Your head coaching career. You have porn star Minshew. And Devontae is probably gonna want out. So this could really turn bad very quickly for the Raiders. Because after that, I guess you go on Zamir White everything. Because after if Devontae wants out, uh, Zamir White, Brock Bowers, and that's your core on offense. And I don't know how well that goes for Pierce, which he got his contract, but the Raiders, they'll have no problem firing real quick,
no,
especially especially a black head coach. Broncos at Seahawks. Shout out to our man Griff. This is his squad. I see Seahawks winning. Geno Smith plays better, kind of bounces back. I think Pete Carroll needed to be out. They needed a new, fresh voice in there. Pete Carroll, what? 87 years old, something like that. Like they needed a fresh voice in there. They said that he wasn't, trying to actually update the offense and things of that nature. So I think they have a good game. Bo Nix will have his first start. I don't know. Like we was talking about rookie quarterbacks. I believe Caleb Williams has a good first game. I don't know about Bo Nix. And that Seattle Seahawks defense looks not going to say the Legion of Boom, but they look more improved than last year.
Mhm.
So I don't know how well Bo Nix does in his first game, but shout out to you beating out the other quarterbacks to get the job. And shout out to Zach Wilson, bro. I liked his when they announced Bo Nix the starter. He didn't have any qualms about it. He showed love. Versus the other dude, oh, that man was upset. Seahawks winning this game by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean it's a contract year for Geno, so he got to get off to a great start. Like you want more bread, you got to play well. I mean, uh, they got you off the bench a couple years ago. You might be headed back there if you don't play too well, or you could be a bridge quarterback somewhere else. But uh, this is a make it or break it year for him. And in this new offense, the OC coming over from Washington, they're going to open things up a little more than what we got to see last year. And Pete Carroll's offense, and then at the same time, they hired the DC from Baltimore. So I already know that like defensive head coaches, like they're not going to be too focused on the offense. That's why you bring in a guy like Grubbs to focus on that. Like his baby is going to be the defense. He's got the two studs at corners. He got the D line. I mean, they went D line first first round this year. So clearly, you know where they're leaning towards getting stronger at. And the Broncos, they're like a rebuilding team. Um, that's why Stidham, you think you're gonna start? Like you're not gonna be here next year. Why are we developing you? Like you you're just a career backup. Like Bo Nix has showed potential in preseason. Granted, of course, maybe it wasn't against the starters, but uh, they took him 12th overall. Clearly, they want to see the product in the Sean Payton offense.
Yeah, also, it's Sean Payton being arrogant, thinking he could take any quarterback. He think he could take Greg and go win 12 games.
Well, if he's trying to get fired, then take Greg. But Bo Nix is definitely a step above that. But I think it's going to be rocky road to start off. Sure, he had his moments. He's going to play quick. I mean, he's an older quarterback, so I don't want to say he's a vet, but he knows um, he plays quick. He's like Drew Brees. It reminds me a little bit of Drew Brees, where he's trying to get it to the weapons, the running backs, the tight ends, the receivers quicker than letting the play develop. Like once you feel the pressure, get it out of your hands so you're not taking unnecessary sacks. So if they play quick, maybe they can make this a game. But with Geno, I see him airing it out to DK. I mean, you got JSN, who is probably going to be the number two this year. I mean, he should be. And he's their top 15, top 20 pick from last year, a stud receiver out of Ohio State. Like, that's the thing. In the draft, if you're looking for receivers, you go to LSU or Ohio State. If you do that every time, it's going to pay off. So um, I think he's going to have a great year, and it's going to just, pop off here. But Bo Nix, welcome to the 12 because you're gonna feel it. It's gonna be loud in there on Sunday.
Facts. Probably one of the more exciting games this week. Cowboys at Browns. CD got his contract, so that's shored up. He's gonna be getting a lot of temps. Former Cowboy Amari Cooper over there. One of the many weapons that Deshaun Watson has. I think he has a nice amount of weapons this year. How do you see this game panning out? Cowboys need to get off to, I think, a fast start. They're one of the teams I think they need to start off with a win. But that Browns defense, Lord Jesus, Miles Garrett.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be tough. Like you said, this Browns defense is really good. You still got Miles Garrett, you still got Denzel Ward, um, and then you're getting Deshaun back. So I mean, granted, everybody's had high expectations since he signed that deal. I mean, fully guaranteed. Of course, you got expectations, but I still think the talent's there. Even last year before he got hurt, that he was playing decent football. Like he wasn't playing terribly, and him and Amari Cooper have a connection. You bring in Jerry Judy. That's another guy who's I think underrated. I mean, who else would succeed over in Denver with all the chaos that they had going on over there? So maybe a change of scenery was needed. In Joku, you got Jerome Ford, who that's another guy. I mean, fantasy draft should be over. So this is all, but Jerome Ford, he wasn't going high in any of these fantasy drafts. But um, Nick Chubb might not play half the season this year. So I think they're going to ride Jerome Ford um, until whenever that point is that Nick Chubb comes back and they can work him in. But um, I just don't know. I think Dallas is a lot of uh, turmoil and toxicity over there. Like Dak, he's a little bitter right now. I mean, he might try to come off confident in his answers, and I know he can't get franchise tagged. He feels comfortable where he's at, but um, I'm sure he would want like it's like being shortstop for the Yankees, like being quarterback for the Cowboys, and then you're not like investing in me. Like that kind of like tells me where we're at, and I think he is going to test free agency. So with that looming over the team all season, I mean, the Browns are a good team. They're not going to go lightly, and you just lost one of your top corners last week, a couple weeks ago. He's going to be out for a couple months. You got Trayvon Diggs coming back from an ACL, so that's a lot to expect. Like Amari Cooper is a route runner; he's going to route you up. So, um, and then he's coming back. I mean, you know he wants to play well against this team. This team gave up on him. Uh, they could have had him and CD, but they got to be cheap. So, um, Deshaun, take care of business, get the season started on a high note, get the dub.
Hey, Deshaun, no massages, and you be
I
just
mean,
fine.
that's when he was playing his best. I mean, he might
Oh
have
yeah, that's right,
to.
that's right, that's right. I forgot. A part of that contract, the Cleveland Browns can only be the ones to administer massages. So now, man, you get a massage because it's actually going to be regulated this time. No happy ending, no love me long time, none of that. So I got the Browns winning also. I picked it before. I forget who I picked when we did the NFC division, NFC East division. But with how it's going and just Dak and Jerry Jones kind of going back and forth, I think it doesn't affect Dak's play, but I don't think that's a good situation. Like you could tell Dak is fed up and sick and tired of Jerry Jones.
Mhm.
Sick and tired of that man. Jerry Jones says this. Dak says, I don't care about nothing that Jerry Jones says in the media. So you could tell he's fed up. It's definitely got to be tough playing for the Cowboys as a whole because it's the biggest brand probably in all of sports. But then your owner is Jerry Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I know he wants to feel appreciated, like most people in their workplace, but then Jerry Jones comes out and he's arrogant. He's the owner of the Cowboys. They've won already. Granted, it was before me and you were able to watch football, but still, he's won before. So I think he holds that arrogance highly. And when guys, push back with their contracts and um, are expecting money, like sure, you give CD that money. He's young, he's a stud, like he's really good. Dak, I mean, you can make the argument that it should be a no-brainer, but he also hasn't really won that many games in the playoffs. Like, sure, you can't put it all on him. Like the defense has struggled too, but um, you live and die by the quarterback. And I mean, he's a really good quarterback. He hasn't won in Dallas. Maybe it's time for the two to part ways, and then you know see who's better for it.
Low and Shador Sanders to the Dallas Cowboys in the draft. Commanders at Bucks. Jayden Daniels, his first game. Baker Mayfield coming back. I think Jayden Daniels has a good game like Caleb Williams does. I think he starts off his career pretty well, especially being that he's a dual threat. I like the Bucks winning though.
Yeah.
I like the Bucks winning though. Commanders are still kind of like a team rebuilding. Um, I like what they're doing though. It looks like they're rebuilding towards the right direction and doing things differently this time around. But I think the Bucks win, and this isn't a hot take prediction or anything like that. But I think Mike Evans gets another 1,000 yard season. I think he stacks it up again, which would be I think his 11th straight.
Mhm.
That's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He doesn't get talked about enough. He does not get talked about enough because he's not ever so far had like a 1,800 yard season or that he hasn't had the best quarterbacks. I mean, he had Tom Brady for a little bit, but he's a model of consistency. 1,000 yards, 10 years straight with different varying quarterbacks. Shout out to Mike Evans, man. Shout out to Mike Evans. But Bucks winning.
Shoot, he might get the 1,000 against Washington. They don't really have much in the backfield defensively um, to stop him, Godwin, any of those weapons out there. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Buccaneers. Like Jaden, he could have a good game, but also Todd Bowles usually runs out a good defense uh, since he's been in Tampa. So I'm rocking with the Buccaneers. Baker, he had a great year. He got paid. I think he'll bounce back pretty nicely this year. And um, I mean, you only got to win about 8 games to win this division. So you're like 20% there if you win week one.
Probably these next two are the safe to say the games of the week. Rams at Lions. That rematch is in Detroit. In the 8 games that we saw Cup, Puka, and Kyron Williams together, they're 6-2. Stafford has thrown 18 TDs. This is gonna be a good one. This is gonna be a good one. I can't even really pick. Like we saw what happened last year. We saw how Detroit came through. That was the playoffs. Stafford coming back. I think Stafford wants to get some revenge after losing to them in the playoffs. I might have to lean just thinking about it. The 6-2 when they're all healthy. Cooper Cup back. I think I'm gonna lean towards the Rams get this win. They start off the season 1-0 in Detroit. Huge win, emotional win for Stafford, all that good stuff. I see that happening, but I do think we'll see this matchup again probably in the playoffs or maybe NFC title game. These are two of the top teams in that NFC.
No, for sure. Um, it's always going to be one of those. It's not. It's like it's not a rivalry game, but it is in a way because these two teams are going to be linked now for the near future. Because of course, the obvious, like the two quarterbacks, they'll be compared until they're done playing. Because Jared Goff, of course, was the number one overall pick. He led the team to the Super Bowl. They didn't do well against the Patriots. The writing was on the wall that McVay didn't feel like he could get the most out of him. So they trade for Matthew Stafford, and he gets them a ring. So um, that's why it was such a big deal in the playoffs last year. And now, of course, the NFL they like to do these storyline games to draw attention to their product, and this is one of the better storylines because um, the Lions. I mean, for most of my life, they've been mediocre, and the Rams they've won a couple Super Bowls in my
That
life.
that's being nice.
Yeah, that's being nice. But like the last couple of years, they've kind of figured things out. Like they almost made the playoffs a couple years ago, and last year they won the division first time in 20 plus years, maybe 30, maybe. And then they almost make it to the Super Bowl. If not, if they only played one half, they would have made the Super Bowl. But it's a tale of two halves, as they say. But Jared Goff, I mean, he plays well in domes. It's kind of a well-known stat at this point that it's like Tua in cold games. He's not good outside, and he's not good up north when it reaches November, December. But Jared Goff, he plays well in the dome. It's at home. You're getting St. Brown. another guy who's a sleeper, Jamison Williams, their first overall pick from a couple years ago. This could be the year that he finally breaks out. I mean, I think he finally put DraftKings down and said, "I'm gonna be a football player." So um, if they get the most out of him, like that kid coming out of Alabama was nice. I mean, there was a reason he was taking over some of the other big names in that draft. But um, the Rams, I mean, they're in a weird period. Like they just traded their starting middle linebacker. Sure, they still have Puka and Cooper Cup and Matthew Stafford. I mean, having Stafford is half the battle because that guy is a born winner. Um, but I'm gonna have to rock with the Lions on this one.
Hearing that, and I forgot that they traded away their linebacker because their defense is a concern too. Aaron Donald not there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a you don't replace that, but still, that's a huge piece to replace. Leadership aspect also. I know they drafted Jared Veras and he should be good, but that's not Aaron Donald good. With that stuff mentioned, I might have to go to Lions too because I totally forgot they traded their linebacker. And yeah, the defense is a concern. The Detroit Lions, I think they show this year though that, like I said, they'll probably be in the NFC Championship game again. I think they show people that last year wasn't a fluke. Like, oh, they luckily no. I think this team is for real, and they're going to be in that conversation again of one of the best teams in the NFC, possibly going to that Super Bowl. And you think at their division, they probably win their division again too. I see it honestly. Bears, Vikings, Packers. Packers are their biggest threat. If Caleb Williams goes bananas, maybe they're a threat too, but I think they actually end up winning the division. So I'm going with the Lions. Actually reading that, forgetting that they traded away their linebacker. You mentioned storylines. Last year on Monday night, Leonard Floyd was a person to tackle and hit A-Rod where he tore his Achilles. The NFL loves storylines, so they decided to, matter of fact, let's have him match up against Leonard Floyd again on Monday night. So you're saying, what? They're playing the Bills? No, they're playing the 49ers. And who went from the Bills to the 49ers? None other than Leonard Floyd. Yeah, definitely this week leading up to it, I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is messing with some ayahuasca. He got some weed in his system. Something. This got to be a level of PTSD to have to go against the same player that caused your season to be done last year. Only the NFL would set this up like this. Jets going to San Fran. Trent Williams expected to be there for game one. They know that Debo, Ayuk got signed. C-Mac is supposed to be playing. This should be a very, very big test for both teams. For both teams. I'll let you start off with who you think is going to win.
It's leaning towards San Fran. I mean, they did like earlier this week. They had a couple guys who weren't signed. Granted, I mean, Ayuk didn't really practice, so it could be a ramp up where he's not playing every snap. McCaffrey's coming off of the calf injury, so I mean, you wonder how healthy he is. And then Trent Williams has been MIA from training camp, so kind of expecting him to just walk out there and just be the dominant self. Like he's got to get his conditioning up. Like that's where you throw all these pass rushers at him. But I'd feel a lot better if we had Hassan Reddick out there too. But um, he'll he'll get here at some point, or he won't. I mean, but we got to just rock with who we got, and it's a great storyline. Like Rogers coming home after almost a career-ending injury, and they revamped the offensive line. Brees Hall, Garrett Williams. You add Mike Williams, who I think is going to be a very underrated player for the Jets this year. I mean, before he got hurt last year, he had put up like 120 yards in both games, and then of course the injury. So if we're getting that Mike Williams, That opens things up for Garrett. And I mean, Rodgers is Rodgers. I think, sure, he's 40 years old, and it's a lot to expect out of a 4-year-old coming off an Achilles to carry a team. But um, I'm not going to doubt him until he doesn't do it. Because usually, when you doubt him, when you think that he's fallen off, he kind of uses that as motivation. Like he hears all the chatter, people saying that he's going to fall flat on his face. The Jets aren't going to be worth anything this year, um, and I think he's motivated. So it's tough. I know who I want to win. That's not the question though. So I'm gonna say the 49ers get it week one. I think it'll be closer than people think. So I think people are just going to say it should be a blowout because it's the Jets. But we got to remember that we do have a good defense on the back end. So Purdy's got to go against that too.
I think it'll be Jackson's going to win somewhere on along the lines of a 23-20, 23-17 type of game.
That sounds good to me. If we could
I
put
think
that in writing.
I see the Jets winning. I like what they have where think we'll see it this game. Aaron Rodgers is not, which for some reason some people think he's not going to be throwing the ball 40 times a game. And I'm a huge, 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 huge fan and believer in Brees Hall that he will show that he is the number 2 running back in the NFL. You can't put him in the rankings yet as number 2 based off the stats and you could say off the eye test, but based off of the last 2 seasons, he was in a terrible situation. It was a terrible situation that was going on with the Jets. No quarterback play. He was putting 8 in the box, knowing that Brees Hall was going to be there. But the crazy, you look at all the analytical stats outside of just rushing yards, rushing after contact, yards from scrimmage, all these other stats. Brees Hall still with a booty quarterback was still top 5 in all of those categories with the C-Max of the world and the Derrick Henrys of the world. Aaron Rodgers, now here. I think this is a game where we get to see a Brees Hall coming out party, where people gonna really realize that haven't already. Brees Hall is him. That's one of the best running backs, and none better game to do it than against the not arguably, but everybody ranks C-Mac as the best running back. No better game to do it than this game, Brees Hall coming out party. And I believe in the Jets defense. 49ers have a good defense too, but I have the Jets defense as the number 1 defense in the NFL. It still was pretty decent last year, again, with terrible quarterback play. They was on the field way longer than they should be. With Aaron Rodgers and Brees Hall now, we see this game of Jets defenses. Yeah. The Jets, they're that freaking good. Yes, I believe we want to see that. And not saying that we should have this conversation, but we'll be on Griff Show next week for overreactions. This will be one of the games where we see overreaction because it's going to be the questions about Brock Purdy comes up again. The Brock Purdy questions are going to come up again after this game. Having to see that Jets defense, Sauce Gardner, the front line, Quinnen Williams, dog. Hassan, he might figure something out after seeing this game. Like I need to get on this roster. I need to suit up. This is a bad group of someone. You know what I watch him out. This defense is a legit defense. Ending off the show, y'all know y'all love fantasy talk. So before we do the fantasy talk, out of all these games we mentioned, any game stick out to you for our gamblers, FanDuel, whatever site y'all use? What are some 1 or 2 games that you see you like the spread, money line, and then give us 1 or 2 player props?
I definitely like. Whew, they, Vegas is on one this week. Every game is like real tight in what you would think. But like you said, if I know I picked Jaguars um, to beat the Dolphins, so if I'm going that way, I like them with the points. It's at 3.5 right now. I think they can keep this game close enough. You got guys coming off an injury on defense. Um, their corner two is not as good as what they used to have, and Xavier Howard. So um, I think if Trevor comes out and plays like the number one overall pick and generational talent that everybody said he was, then this could be one of those upsets early on in the season, and it could leave Mike McDaniel wondering like what happened. What happened? Like I got all these weapons. We shouldn't be losing to the Jaguars, a team that shouldn't even be in our league. But um, I think that happens, and then I'm just so confused by this Texans Colts spread. It's like -3, which is making it seem like I should lean towards the Colts in that one. Because I think Houston's the favorite. You got Anthony Richardson coming off of the injury. People still don't really know what he is. The jury's still out. But I think he can take over a game the same way like a Josh Allen can or a Cam Newton can. Like the legs, he's a freak athlete. I mean, everybody's seen the videos in the off season of him like doing windmill dunks, all these things. Like that quarterbacks don't do that. So if he can hit the open guys like a Donnie Mitchell and Michael Pittman, and you still got Jonathan Taylor there to take the pressure off of his shoulders. I mean, they can upset Houston. I mean, who knows? That it might be dysfunction early because you do have Diggs coming in there on a 1 year deal, and he needs to get paid. That's why they changed it to a 1 year deal. So if he goes a drive or two without a target, that's where you might see a slow mo going into commercial of him tossing the helmet on the ground where he's screaming. So I definitely could see the Colts winning. And
I totally forgot to even ask that game.
no, that game, I mean,
I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, I didn't. That's the game I forgot to write down. The Colts Texans game.
that one's kind of a rival, just like the division games are like rivalry. So like uh, that one could be one of those that turns into a rivalry. The two young quarterbacks. I think Anthony Richardson versus C.J. Stroud. C.J.'s the hot name. Anthony Richardson's kind of the hot fantasy name. He hasn't shown anything yet. Um, so if he can pull this one out, things are looking up for the Colts. I don't see them going too far this year, but um, definitely I'm interested to see how he does this year as a Florida fan because he didn't do much for us the 1 year that he was there, but maybe he could do more in the season. And
Any
then let me
player
give you
props?
some player props I got. Jalen Hurts over 36 and a half rushing yards. I think last year he was a little banged up, and the offense was a little um, out of sorts. So some of the numbers might have not been. I mean, he still had 15 rushing touchdowns, so he's always a threat to, if you want to. I know people who gamble like that, where they'll do first touchdown scorer. He could be one of those, the tush push. Saquon, don't be too down because you might lose a couple of touchdowns to Saquon because of the little, they haven't banned it yet. Let's see, I got a couple more.
I think that could be a scary offense. They figure it out, and they had a right balance of rushing and then passing, like you said, with Jahan Dotson. They added too. That could be a very scary offense. I already said it on the other episode. I think this is the Jalen Hurts bounce back season. I think all the disrespect and the smut on his name is going to change after this. Oh yeah, he is pretty good. That he's halfway decent. I think people are going to be reminded, especially all those weapons. The Eagles, Lions, Eagles, Rams in that conversation NFC Championship game.
I got a couple more. I got Malik Neighbors. Right now, his over is set at 59 and a half, and that's with the Vikings corners. I mean, I couldn't name them. If you threatened me to name some, I couldn't name any. So he could get that on one catch. So I expect him to be involved early and often. I mean, you took him top 10 for a reason because you know it's been a revolving door at receiver. Like your best receiver besides him is Darius Slayton, who on most teams might be a 3 or a 4. Like he shouldn't be somebody you rely on so heavily. Um,
No Sterling
he,
Shepard, love.
he's in Tampa. He
He got cut.
yeah, he got cut and took his talents to not South Beach but Tampa. And then let me see. I know Kyler Murray's coming back, so one of the things that he's really good at is scrambling, and that's what makes him another stud fantasy quarterback to look at. Um, and I think towards the back end of last season, he started to get his legs back under him. You know, coming off the torn ACL, and had a couple games where he rushed for over 30, 40 yards. And right now, his player prop is set at 30. And I think he can
That's
get there.
low.
It is low, but that's against the Bills. I mean, maybe they're assuming that like he's looking more downfield, like he's changing his game. Like, no, he's quick as hell. Like, everybody likes to make fun. Like he looks like one of those toddlers running out there that you just can't catch up to. Um, and that's what makes him so elusive. So 30 rushing yards, I think he can clear that in like the first half. That's one of those things that's real, real light.
I'm bugging. I ain't write that game down either, bro. I was looking. That's crazy. Who you got winning that game? Cardinals or Bills?
I got
I got Cardinals winning.
It's tough because I don't know what they got on defense. Like that's the main thing. Like offensively, I know what they got. They got James Conner, Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. They got pieces on offense, but defensively, can they like stop Josh Allen? He's gonna have to go full Superman this year because sure they got Kincaid, who I think another big time fantasy player. I think if you need a tight end, that's really who you should be looking at because the cupboard is bare over in Buffalo. Um, James Cook, you got him. You got Khalif Shakir, who's another guy in fantasy sleeper. Um, so I think there's pieces for Buffalo to make noise. I mean, you got rid of Stephon Diggs, so maybe that everybody can breathe a sigh of relief. There's no tension in the room. There's no awkward sideline antics. Like everybody's, it's not about me. It's about we. So hopefully, not hopefully. I mean, hopefully the Cardinals win, but I think I think the Bills are gonna win this one.
Speaking of fantasy, you threw out some names out there. Who are three players that you think people should start this week? Three people that should be benched. And once this week is over, maybe we'll start at like week 2, week 3. We'll actually add on to it like who you should be picking up off the free agent waiver. Might not be much free agent waiver movement off of week 1,
Yeah.
but I mean it could be a serious injury. Who knows? We'll determine that based off of how week 1 goes. But 3 starters, 3 people that should be benched.
I'll do the Sunday games because the Thursday and Friday games. I mean, people should already have ideas in their head of like who they're starting. Um, but definitely, you should start. I'm gonna say Trevor Lawrence. I think he's he's been my sleeper coming into the season. I think he showed how talented he was the year before when he was fully healthy and was able to play with some decent um, talent around him. And I think he's a good quarterback. Like he's not generational like people wanted to make him out to be, but I mean fantasy, who cares if you're generational? Like as long as you're getting a lot of points and he does run the ball pretty well for a taller quarterback like that. And then you bring in Brian Thomas, I definitely could see him catching one over the top. Um, That's one of my guys. Depending on if plays on Sunday, which I don't think he should, but I got a sleeper, deep sleeper, Jermaine Burton, the receiver they drafted, their rookie. He came on strong in preseason. They really do like him. I think he's going to end up being their number two next year once T. Higgins is gone, and he gets a nice audition this week against the Patriots. I mean, what better than to practice in a little preseason game, like a regular season preseason game where you get full on snaps. And I think he could have a big game. Like for those people who do DFS fantasy, where you're picking different players um, for the day, and you need a cheap receiver to pick. Like Jermaine is probably going to be worth like $1,000, $2,000. So that's a cheap one right there. Um, Alvin Kamara. I mean, this is obvious, but Alvin Kamara is one of those that he's being slept on for some reason. Like he's going a lot lower than he should be. Because even last year he had 75 catches. Granted, he missed I think 3 games, 3 or 4 games because of the suspension last year. Um, I think he was on pace for almost 90 catches. So he's getting a new offensive coordinator who utilizes the running back out of the backfield. And we already know Derek Carr is Mr. Checkdown. So even if he rushes for 40 yards, he can still catch like 10 balls and be productive fantasy wise and help you out. All he's got to do is fall in the end zone, and you might have RB1 for the week.
Players that they should bench, do not start them because of the matchups, because of whatever the case, whatever the reason. Players that should be benched this week.
Honestly, I would bench. It might be controversial, but I would bench Ayuk. I think him coming on so late in training camp puts him a little bit at a disadvantage of being where he would normally be a month into training camp. And I mean, he's starting off with Sauce and DJ Reed and a really good defense. Like he's not gonna, be able to ease his way in. Like you're in it now, so um, I think he's a bench. I mean, some of the other guys, I don't want to say Debo's a bench because there's ways you can factor him in. Rushing the ball, uh, screen passes, quick passes. Like that's how they're going to have to attack this Jets defense. I mean, Debo's the X factor. Um, but some other guys that I would bench, Carolina, maybe even Deontay Johnson. I mean, it's his first game. You're going to get matched up probably with Marshawn Lattimore, who, when he is healthy, he's a really good cornerback. Um, so that's a hell of a test coming over to a new place. Bryce Young, he's trying to show that he's got it. I was going to say he's still got it, but the jury's still out if he's still got it. So I might lean towards benching Deontay. And then I'm gonna do a fun one because Houston, you got the three-headed monster with those receivers, um, and it's gonna be a coin flip to see who's the stud for the week and who's the dud. So week one, I'm gonna say Nico Collins is the dud. I think you should bench him against this team. I think they do get Diggs and Tank Dell involved a little bit more. Those guys, better route runners, quick passes. Also, I'm sure. I mean, Diggs was named a captain, so some of the off the field or on field stuff might be just overblown.
It
Maybe
shouldn't be.
it shouldn't be, but the fact that he was named a captain, maybe that says something. Maybe that like him and CJ got some good chemistry going on. I know he's got the chemistry with Tank, and he had it with Nico, but you're adding an All-Pro caliber player in Stephon Diggs. I mean, somebody's got to bite the bullet each week, and I mean, I think Nico, he's gonna have to do it this week.
And they're not going to be that type of offense where they're throwing 40, 45 times a game. They got Joe Mixon too, so it's going to be a balanced attack. So you're going to have to get it in where you fit it in, and you better be able to get some yak.
Yeah,
because you might only get 2-3 touches, 2-3, and you're gonna have to figure it out. I got my 50 yards this game, my 60 yards. It's gonna have to be like that, and I'm pretty sure because CJ Stroud is a smart quarterback, and I saw him make sure everybody get touches, and he already said this all season. He said whoever's open, it's going to be some games where it's going to be some blowouts where he's going to probably make sure that, all right, Diggs already got his 100. Let me get this person. Caleb Williams going to have that issue too. Both teams, I think, can actually have, which I think the last team to do that was that the Kurt Warner Rams? But I think you're going to see 3 1,000-yard receivers,
Maybe.
possibly.
They did have Torrey Holt, Bruce, and then I think Marshall Faulk.
Yeah. So I think you could possibly see that with the Texans and the Bears. Low key. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And we're gonna end the show because we throwing a little basketball. I saw a little video, and the Knicks. You are a Knicks historian, a Knicks fan. If you had to choose your all-time starting 5 Knicks, all Knicks, everybody that's put on a jersey from Dave DeBusschere all the way to y'all had him at one point. My man that used to be on the Lakers. Y'all had a lot of people. Dave DeBusschere to T-Mac to Jonah. His last name wasn't Hill, but you know what I'm talking about.
Those guys don't count. Like T-Mac, nigga, that when your career's over, you come to the Knicks. That's usually what it was. Like we had him, we had Penny. Like these were when they were washed up. Antonio McDyess. I mean, these are a bunch of guys who were studs somewhere else, and then they came here, and it was like,
literally. Got paid, got one last contract, went over there. Baron Davis, a bunch of people. But who's your all-time starting 5 of New York Knicks players?
I'm gonna go with Jalen Brunson. He's in my starting 5 right now. Him, Clyde, Patrick Ewing, of course, Bernard King, and Willis Reed. I'm gonna go with Willis Reed too.
And if you add a 6-man in there, who would be your 6-man?
6-man, probably Oak. I'm gonna put Oak in there just as the enforcer. I mean, 90s basketball. Even if they weren't as talented as they are now, they could squabble, and we might need that if people are doing stuff like Embiid did in the playoffs to Jalen. We might need to throw Oak out there and throw a little shoulder in there.
Only issue was that if Dolan gonna let him in the arena, but that's a whole that's a whole.
You can play road games. That's it.
Hey man, you already know the vibes. If you stay ready, wait, pause. Cause y'all still. I just want to throw this out there. Y'all still on my head about the lemon pepper wings. Literally still in my head. Let me just give y'all another one. Watermelon is absolutely overrated. Absolutely overrated. You could take my black card. I've been told, oh, you're not black because you don't like watermelon. Watermelon is overrated. If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. Bench Mob, we out. Peace.